I love Final Fantasy XIV. I actually love majority of the mainline Final Fantasy games, and I've dedicated most of my life to these games. I think my love for the franchise started when I was a little kid sitting in front of our TV, and it was one of those really tiny TVs that was about the size of a laptop screen nowadays. And I was watching my brother play Final Fantasy VII for the first time. I just remember my jaw being on the floor because those pixelated characters made out of blocks looked so realistic to me. And the music, like MIDI music had no right to be that good. It drew me in a way that I've never experienced before in a game. And I didn't even know they could do that because up till that point, the only games that I had played was stuff like Crash Bandicoot or Medieval. I think the first drafts of this video started when I finished Endwalker. And I really wanted to make this my thoughts on Final Fantasy XIV as a Sprout, but unfortunately that never happened. So now a few years later, I really want to tell you guys a story when Final Fantasy XIV became a Final Fantasy to me. My old self hated the idea of Final Fantasy franchise being an MMO. But I'm no stranger to multiplayer games. My first ever MMO was a really old game called Ultima Online. And then when I was in my mid-teens, I went through the World of Warcraft phase, as did basically every single other person. Because that was back when the original vanilla WoW was released and we got Burning Crusade, Wrath of the Lich King. And in my mind, Final Fantasy just didn't fit that image that I had in my head what MMOs were. Because Final Fantasy 7, 8, and 9 were the games that defined my childhood. And especially after experiencing a game like Final Fantasy X and having my mind completely changed and altered by this game forever. And show me what storytelling can be at its best. So I doubled down on my opinion that Final Fantasy shouldn't be an MMO because there's no storytelling in those games. And I was so angry after hearing that Final Fantasy XI was an MMO. Because after 10, I was so excited to experience another story that was so immersive. But it wasn't too long after that we got Final Fantasy XII. And with that, we got the best phrase in Final Fantasy history. And obviously it's not a video about 14, unless I hype about VRS.
Fran.
Yes?
I was wondering what Yote said, you know? About how you said the same thing 50 years ago?
Your point?
How old were you again?
Nice fun.
But at the time, the game was a little bit too political for me, so I didn't understand half the things that was happening in the story. I did enjoy the visuals of the game, how it played, and I had a lot of fun with it. I even wanted Princess Ash's hair, so I remember going to a hairdresser, showing a picture of her, and being like, please give me this hair. And then it really was, I wanted this moment, but I got this, and then I was just told that, oh, you need to style it for it to look like that. And that kind of wraps up my obsession when it came to Final Fantasy XII. I need to throw out an honorable mention to Final Fantasy X2. That game, peak fiction. I don't care what anyone else says. It's amazing.
YRP in position. It's showtime, girls.
And while everybody else was singing Jar of Hearts in their bedrooms, I was singing 1,000 Words.
Too easily.
Now, for the first drafts of this video, I went really hard on 13 in the notes. I didn't like it. I didn't like the characters or the story, but now that I went back and looked at some of the cutscenes that I had forgotten and went to listen to the soundtrack, I do feel a really strong sense of nostalgia. And yeah, it wasn't the best game ever. Sure, visually it kind of looked cool, even beautiful. It was a story about defying fate. It is an appealing theme to explore in stories, and Square Enix has done so multiple times. And not to get overly philosophical here, but I do believe everybody has felt it one time in their life, wanting to be free and change the circumstances which you live in. But all of this doesn't change the fact that for me, this game represents the start of an end. And in fact, I didn't really hear anything from Square Enix for 10 years. So I moved on and I played other games that I really enjoyed, like Metal Gear Solid 5 and The Last of Us and Witcher 3. For obvious reasons. Then Square Enix appeared again, but they delivered the game that was the final nail in the coffin for me. Final Fantasy 15, the game that went through development hell. Well, 15 was a game. The series that I had loved my entire life lost its magic. It must have been 2017 when I had my first experience of 14. I ran into the release trailer of Stormblood. I remember it vividly. A girl in a red dress on a palm of this huge stone statue. And for a second I thought I had missed another mainline game besides 15. But then I saw the 14 logo at the end and instantly went back to, oh, it's this abomination. Moving on. What was the last story that you experienced that after being done with it, you just fell into complete despair of being lost at what to do because you cannot experience that story again for the first time ever? Because that is the feeling that I was constantly hunting for. And then one day, my brother was visiting me. He said this: I tried Final Fantasy 14. There was a free trial. Apparently, the story is actually good. And I still didn't buy it, despite it coming from a person whose opinion I respect so much when it comes to Final Fantasies or video games in general. There's no story in multiplayer games. It's not a good way to tell stories. It doesn't work. But I was desperate. I was playing Rainbow Six Siege. And I missed the music and the world of Final Fantasy. So that night, I finally pushed my doubts, biases, and ego aside, and I downloaded Realm Reborn and logged in for the first time.
Hey, you're finally awake.
It really wasn't like love at first sight, when I started playing this game, but I had fun enough, and I bought every single expansion that was available at the time, that was all the way to Shadowbringers, just to get a Vera, because, you know, for reasons, what's not to love? Post-Patches of Realm Reborn is probably my favorite bit of story when thinking about the old 14. And then I felt it for the first time, the feeling that I had been missing for 15 years.
You should never have come here, Warrior of Light. I labor only to forge a lasting peace. A peace you would deny us out of ignorance and blind faith. No matter. If it is our fate to be at odds, then it is mine to strike you down. We whom gods and men have forsaken shall be the instruments of our own deliverance. Partake of my flesh. Fill this vessel with your light. Walk amongst your brothers and sisters once more. Oh, Saint Shiva, still the hatred within our hearts and bless us with eternal grace.
The game is going through like a really rough patch at the moment, but I just wanted to make this video to remind myself why I've sunk thousands of hours in this game, and I guess balance out negative energy of the community at the moment just a little bit, which comes from a very justified place. And I strongly believe that the criticism is only as loud as the love that the community has towards the game. And I completely agree with the current sentiment and criticism that the game has received. And I just hope that Square Enix will figure out a way to bring back all these feelings that I'm sure many of us have felt towards the game, but have lost a little bit recently. And I'm really grateful if you made it this far in the video. Please leave a comment below what was the moment when you started to really enjoy the game, and I'll see you guys next time.